What we're going to talk about today is how to transform your sales from the inside out. And to introduce that topic, I'd like to share with you my personal story. So when I was little, I had grand ambitions. And this is like when I was still in primary school. I dreamt of standing in front of audiences just like this. So I'm living the dream and sharing some ideas, to inspire people to live their lives to their greatest potential. But then when I got into my teenage years, I ran into a big problem. The problem was that I was depressed, inexplicably depressed. I felt down about myself. I had negative thoughts about life. Every day was a drag. Days of feeling depressed turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and months turned into years. I frequently had thoughts of suicide, but fortunately I had enough sense to know that you can't take a permanent solution to a temporary problem. But I'll tell you, it did not feel temporary at the time. In fact, this lasted for a grand total of 14 years. And I'll tell you what, you can learn a lot from being depressed for 14 years, and it's definitely shaped a lot of who I am today. But towards the end of that period, I listened to a guy named Tony Robbins. Has anyone heard of who he is? Yeah, most of you in the room. He's a very well-known motivational speaker, and he taught me the idea of positive thinking. And it's so much more than just looking at the water bottle half full. There's so much more to it. He taught me to start changing the way that I thought about myself, to realize that the past does not equal the future, that we can literally transform our future and our lives by changing our thoughts. I took it fully on board. 3 months later, I had totally changed the way that I thought about myself. I decided to reject the negative and to embrace the positive. And I stand before you today completely symptom-free of depression since that day. It's probably around 8 years now since that happened to me. So the reason that I'm sharing this particular story with you is a very powerful concept. That within each of our brains, within the stuff that's between our two ears, has immense power for change. We can totally transform how our life and how our careers and how our sales go by simply making changes to the way that we think. Once I was clear from that, I started my career in nursing. I wasn't really quite sure how to go about starting a public speaking career, so I went into something where I could express my care for people. And so I went into that. 4 years later, realized, hey, this is probably not going to lead towards public speaking. So then I thought, I better start my own business. And if I'm going to start my own business, I'm going to need clients. And if I'm going to get clients, I'm going to need to know sales. So then I embarked on my journey to learn sales. When I first started, I was working for an IT company. And I'll tell you, I was so scared. Just picking up the phone to speak to an existing client had my hands shaking, my heart was pounding, and my throat dried up. I was not a natural. I was not gifted in sales. But I persevered nonetheless. And this is one of the key ingredients for success in sales, perseverance. But the second thing that I did was I read all the books that I could on the subject. Knowing that I was weak on this subject, I read and read and read. I attended as many seminars as I could. I watched all the videos I could. I listened to a lot of audio books. In fact, I was just sharing with Fleur, I don't listen to the radio, I just listen to books whenever I'm traveling. So you'd be surprised by how much you can get through just by replacing that one thing with learning. So I was promoted within the company to going from working with small to medium businesses to large corporations, selling to the largest companies in Australia and internationally, and that's fun. Trying to call China without speaking Chinese, looks can be deceiving. But yeah, I was enormously successful in that area. It presented me with an opportunity to make a difference in the world of selling. This was my launch pad for starting my own business and teaching people that in order to be successful in sales, you have to combine integrity with skills to be successful. And that's where it brings me to you today. And that's what I want to share with you today. First of all, I'd like to share with you a way of thinking about and understanding human behavior and our mind. So here we have a picture of the brain. There are basically, this is an oversimplification, there are basically two parts to our brain. There's the neocortex, which is primarily responsible for thinking, for logic, and this is basically where our conscious mind is situated. So you're listening to me with your neocortex right now. That's, if we put electrodes on you, that's the part that's going to be firing up. The limbic system is the part that's further inside the brain that is responsible for emotions, long-term memory, and is otherwise known as the subconscious. All right, so there's the conscious and the subconscious. Now, you may have heard this before from other sales gurus. Have you ever heard the saying that people buy with emotions and then justify with logic? That you have? Have a think about that for a moment. How true is that? Who really believes that that is true? Put your hand up. Yeah, basically everyone in the room. Okay, so I don't need to prove it too much to you, but let's think about a couple of situations where this might apply. Have you ever said something out of anger and then regretted it later? We've all done that. Have you ever bought something out of impulse and you go home and you wonder, what am I doing with these 3 extra pairs of shoes? Talking to the ladies. Talking to the... I knew I'd get the ladies on that one. For the guys, it's the gadgets. So we make decisions primarily through emotions, and then we justify it with logic. And this is actually the secret to transforming our results. You see, when I was going through that depression, what I did was I used my conscious mind to change my thoughts. But it wasn't immediate. The change was not immediate. It took several months. What I needed to do was I needed to continuously plant ideas into my subconscious by repeating and repeating and repeating the idea that, hey, I'm not a bad person. In fact, I'm a good person. I like myself. And to push out all the negative stuff. It took time, but you can literally transform your life using this model by planting thoughts, new thoughts into the subconscious and getting rid of the old ones. So one author puts it this way, that the subconscious and the conscious is like an elephant and a rider. The rider can do whatever he can to try to tame the elephant, but ultimately he's going to go where the elephant decides to go. So this is really important for understanding our own behavior as well as our clients' behavior. So if this is true, right, if people make decisions emotionally and then justify with logic, how would that change your approach to selling?
You get all the emotional stuff in there.
Yes.
And the rational stuff toward the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever heard from other trainers that belief is really core and important in selling? If people could buy just some information, theoretically you could give them a brochure and they would just buy. But the reality is that people buy on emotions, and so therefore you need to get emotionally involved with your product in order to transfer that emotion to the other person, and then they will be more likely to buy from that point of view. And so that also has implications for the amount of information that we send to people. One of the big temptations for salespeople is to inundate our clients with information because we're trying to educate them. But what's that going to do? That's going to clutter up their conscious mind. They're going to think this is too hard. Their emotions are going to think, I've got other things to do. They're going to put your proposal aside. So we've got to be really careful about the interaction between these two fields of the brain when we're interacting with clients. So this is a very, very useful framework for thinking about our behavior and understanding our behavior as well as the behavior of our clients. So what I want you to do exactly, speaking about the human mind, we tend to think in images. That's why it's so hard to remember names and numbers, but it's easy to remember a face. I've already forgotten some of your names, so I apologize for that in advance. That's just the way the human brain works. That's my excuse anyway. All right, so whatever is in our subconscious will influence all of our behavior. It colors literally everything that we do. So in my times when I was thinking a lot of negative thoughts about myself, I behaved exactly how I thought of myself. So when we're thinking about sales, Sales, unfortunately, has had a really bad reputation over the last couple of years or decades. So much so that people don't call themselves sales consultants anymore. They call themselves business development managers, which can be a little bit of a not so accurate term because there are business development managers that don't do any literal selling. So let's just have a think about what words come to our mind. And so Nick, you've gone through this exercise before. What words come to your mind immediately when you think about the word sales? Dodgy.
Manipulative.
What's that?
Manipulative.
Manipulative, yes.
Annoying.
Annoying.
Pushy.
Non-trustworthy.
Pushy, not trustworthy. Oh my goodness. And Nick, your turn. Please bring some positivity into it.
Specialist.
Specialist, yes, very good, thank you. Any other positive words that we can associate with sales?
Achievers.
Achievers, yep, great.
Outgoing.
Outgoing, yep, that's one positive trait.
Problem-solving.
Problem solving, fantastic. Now, so our first impulse is negative words. The first response, right? And this is going to color our actions and how we feel about our work. In fact, you do a Google search on salesperson, and this is one of the first images that you get.
Oh, Nick.
What am I doing there?
Now, if you believe that selling in itself is dodgy, it's manipulative and unethical, then how on earth are you going to be effective at it? Especially since most of us consider ourselves to be upstanding and ethical people. There's a bit of a conflict between what we believe and what we do, and that will cause some problems. So let's try to redefine and dispel some of the myths about sales. So first of all, a lot of people believe that to be successful in sales, you have to be unethical. You know, the ends justify the means. But what's going to happen if you mistreat someone, if you promise, overpromise, and underdeliver to a client?
You'll never get them back.
They don't come back.
Yep, they don't come back. No trust. What else? What's the next thing that will happen?
They might actually tarnish your reputation
Yeah.
in the market.
Exactly. You know, back in the old days, marketers would talk all about the power of word of mouth. One person tells 6 people about their bad experience, those 6 people tell another 6 people, and the flow and effect goes on.
Especially in this day and age with social media. It spreads within an hour, or a minute.
Exactly, exactly. It's word of mouth on steroids. There's a banner out there that actually says that. Live reads word of mouth on steroids. So I'm not sure if that's copyrighted or not. I'm going to steal that anyway. So yeah, social media, in this day and age, you cannot afford to be unethical because the word spreads around too quickly. You cannot afford to tarnish your reputation with unethical means. So we have to keep a high standard of ethics. What about being aggressive and pushy? That's often thought of as one of the key traits to successful selling. What happens if you are pushy with someone?
People will back off.
Yeah.
They'll go into their shell.
Exactly. What will happen is you'll trigger their fight or flight response. They'll either argue with you, or they'll be rude to you, or they'll just simply hang up. So it's just not a viable strategy anymore. What about the idea that you have to be born with it?
Give the gab.
Yep, gift of the gab, that's the common one. That's the big myth. I'll share with you, in my nursing career, I worked in the neonatal intensive care unit. So that's basically babies that are born a little bit early. And, so working with babies for about 3 years or so, I'll have to say that none of these babies really demonstrated any sales skills, you know? they just, none of them were born with it. So, and I'm a living example of someone who has managed to become successful in selling without having the natural gifts. I'll tell you, I would have preferred to stand in front of an audience of 100 people to give a speech than to pick up the phone to speak to someone. So that's where I've come from. And so you certainly, even if you don't have the so-called gift of the gab, you can certainly become successful in selling. So all of these are myths. We can dispel them from our belief system, and we can hold our heads up high that selling is something that is not only ethical, but is something that is actually fantastic and something that is to be proud of. So that's what I'm hoping to instill with you today. We're living in a new era of selling. Nowadays, it's more about building relationships. And so one of the buzzwords in the industry is relationship selling. It's not about the transaction anymore. It's about building trust, rapport, getting to know people, getting them to like you, and so on and so forth. We are also living in an era of consultative selling. So it's not about just, hey, look at how great my product is. Here are all the features, here are all the benefits, would you like to buy? It's not so much like that anymore. Nowadays, we've got to find out what people actually want and whether they actually need what we're selling. Then only we can make a sale. So that's consultative selling. We're living in an era of integrity selling. Thankfully, more and more sales trainers are coming along these lines. They recognize that pushy tactics don't work anymore, and so now they're recommending much more tactics or strategies without tarnishing one's own integrity. And we're also living in an age of complex selling. So how many decision makers do you usually have when you're pitching your products?
1 to 3.
One.
Yeah.
1 to 3? Yeah, 1. Yeah. Well, for the ones that have more than one buyer, that's what you can consider that a complex sale. And the reason that the sale is complex is because not only do you have to convince more than one person, but sometimes their interests may be conflicting with one another. So that's a subject for another time. Now, we're going to play a little game. So Nick, you've seen this game as well before. Who would you hire? Imagine for a moment that you're a sales manager and you're hiring a new salesperson. So you've looked through all of the CVs and there are 2 candidates left. Candidate A is Bob. And Bob has 10 years of experience. He comes across as very professional and he's really ambitious. The only thing that you notice during the interview process is that he's just a little bit arrogant. Maybe you can look over that. I don't know. So candidate B is Jane. Jane has 5 years of experience. She's a keen learner. And it's someone that you would trust your house keys with. You've known her since childhood. So raise your hand if you would hire Bob in this scenario. No one? Okay, no surprise. It seems that every audience that I try this with, no one would hire Bob. Why? Why is that?
Because you've got a negative word in his description.
Yeah?
Arrogant.
The word arrogant
just
just
within our
sends
culture.
bad
Yep.
vibes and warning signals.
Yes, it does. But only just a little bit arrogant?
He's toned his arrogance down in the interview. Once he gets out of the interview, gets the job, he's really arrogant.
Yes, well, you know what they say about cockroaches, right? You see one, you know that there's going to be a lot more elsewhere. So it stands to reason then that integrity and the person's character and their attitudes are far more important than their skills or their experience and knowledge. But for some reason, a lot of people put a lot of weight on that piece of paper called the CV. And they take no consideration for the person's character qualities, the intangibles. So this is exactly what is happening when people look at us. When our prospects are looking at us, they're judging our character. If we come across as arrogant, a little bit arrogant, guess who they're not going to buy from? Or if you come across as someone who is trustworthy, then their chances of doing business with you are much, much higher. But what is integrity? Let's open a little discussion. What is integrity to you? Honesty? Yeah. What does trustworthiness? Okay, let's think of specific situations where honesty and integrity takes place. So what actions can you take to demonstrate integrity?
Doing the right thing by the client or the customer.
Yes.
Does the right thing for you in the business. So
Yes.
It's a mutual.
Yes.
thing, yeah,
Okay, so what is the right thing?
Like always delivering what you've promised the client.
Delivering what you've promised. Exactly. That's one of the key things. Absolutely key. We promise this, we deliver this when we say that we're going to deliver it. But there's a third element that most people ignore, and that is consistency between what you believe and what you say and what you do. If you believe that sales is an unethical profession and you're trying to sell, guess what? you've got a break in your integrity. So we have to change the way that we think about selling to have integrity within ourselves. And ultimately, we are our most critical judge. We are our own harshest critic. So if we don't have integrity on the inside, it's going to communicate itself on the outside as well. And this is where I came up with the idea that integrity plus skills is success. It's all good and fine to have someone who's got good character, but if they have no competency in the job, then they're not going to do so well either. So you need a combination of both, but integrity is the foundation for success. And then you build the skills on top of the integrity. So what I want you to now, so let's move on to thinking. Let's keep on recalibrating the way that we think about selling. So this is another game. Spot the similarity. In situation number 1 is a marriage proposal. In situation number 2 is a job interview. Situation number 3 is parenting. And situation number 4 is selling a product. What's the similarity?
You're selling something.
Yes. You're selling yourself? Yes, you're selling something.
You're actually getting the other person to agree with you.
Yes, it involves persuasion. Right? Sales is nothing but persuasion and trying to get other people to take action on what you're getting, what you want them to do. Out of all of these 4, this is the bonus round question. Which one do you think is the hardest?
The parent.
Yes, exactly. For any of you that's been a parent, that's the hardest one of all. If you can convince your kids to eat their vegetables, oh my goodness. I'd rather sell to corporations, thank you. High-level CEOs, getting my kids to eat the veggies, no thanks. But sales is universal. We need it in every situation of life. One other sales guru has their tagline that everyone lives by selling something. The more you think about it, the more true you find it is. So there's absolutely nothing inherently wrong with selling. It's just that it's gotten a bad reputation through dodgy people. The other thing that I want you to think about is the similarities between sales and leadership. Now, who here considers themselves a leader? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so for the rest of you, I want you to now think of yourself as a leader, because that's exactly what you are. Every single one of us has influence on other people, whether we know it or we think about it or not. My kids have influence on my wife and I. If they misbehave, they can make me very angry. They are influencing us all the time. And the more I thought about that, the more scared and shocked that I was. My kids can influence me. But we have influence over other people. And the more you embrace this, the more you can take pride in what you do. So what do leaders do? They envision a better future for their clients. Sure, they could just cruise on and do exactly what they've been doing for the last decade and getting no results. Or you can intervene. You can envision a better future for their business. You have a way to increase the amount of exposure their business gets. You can increase their revenue. What would that mean for your clients if they were to get that additional revenue and that additional business? This is what you're doing. You're taking them from where they are now and leading them to a different outcome. You have the ability to change the lives of the people that you sell to. And the way that you go about it is just exactly the same as leaders, traditional leaders do. We use influence, we inspire people, and we persuade people to take action. It's exactly the same. But the most important thing here to remember is that the greatest leaders are servants. The greatest leaders are servants. And so there's a buzzword in the leadership field, which is servant leadership. So we recognize the influence that we have on people, but at the same time, we don't lord it over the people that we have following us. We don't consider ourselves better than those people. We are here to serve them. We lead them, but we are also serving them. And that is the best mindset that we can have for our efforts in selling. We're running out of time, so I do apologize. I'll get you to write that in your ideas about servant leadership at a later stage. Let's move on to the next framework that we can think about selling. So out of all of these frameworks, try to think about which one resonates with you the best and make that your one action item. So now I want you to imagine for a moment that you've got a terrible headache, and you go to the doctor's office because it's severe enough to warrant that, and you walk in and the doctor says, "Hi, how can I help you?" "Oh, doctor, I've got a really terrible headache." And the doctor looks at his watch, he gets a packet of Panadol, gives you the Panadol and says, "Take these and I'll see you later." That would be medical malpractice. But at the same time, how many salespeople go into a situation and present their product and say, "Why don't you buy it?" without doing any analysis at all? That would be sales malpractice. So if we think of ourselves as a doctor of selling, what should we do? We should ask diagnostic questions. You know, a headache could be caused by something as simple as not getting enough sleep or being dehydrated. On the other hand, you could have a brain aneurysm, but the doctor won't know unless they ask lots of diagnostic questions and do whatever scans they need to do. So we need to do the same in selling. We need to ask the questions and do our diagnosis of the people that we speak to. And then only we make a recommendation for treatment. So now I just want you to imagine for a moment, when you're picking up that phone, how do you think about yourself? Do you think of yourself as a traditional salesperson? I'm sorry to bother you. I know you're busy. Do you ever catch yourself saying that? I hope not. Because the truth is, your time is just as valuable as your prospects. If you think of yourself as a doctor, is the doctor going to say to a patient, "Oh, I'm sorry to bother you, I've got your medical results here, would you like to go through it?" Of course not. A doctor would just say, "Hi, this is Dr. Lai, I've got your results, is this a good time to go over and speak to you about it?" So imagine yourself like a doctor, and you're the doctor making the call. You're gonna sound a lot better when you're on the phone. So once again, this is going into the subconscious level. If you continuously think of yourself like a doctor of selling, you're going to communicate yourself a lot better on the phone. So now here's probably one of the most important concepts, and this is the reason that I'm skipping over answering the other two questions. When it comes to the way that we think about selling, I want you to understand this one principle and internalize this as much as possible. A sale only ever occurs when the value that you are proposing far exceeds the price that you are asking for. The value of what you're proposing must far exceed the price that you are asking for. No one is ever going to buy from you if say you're proposing they spend $5,000. No one's going to buy from you if you're promising them only $5,000 return. When I was selling search engine optimization, our price was $2,000 a month as a minimum package. I would do all of my research, make sure that there was a business case for it, that they were going to get at least $20,000 in revenue from the advertising campaign. Otherwise, it just wasn't worth exploring any further. So I want you to do this when you're prospecting and when you're putting together your proposals. Put together a business case for your prospects. Project as far as accurately as you can, the kind of audience reach that they're going to have and the potential value that they're going to get in return for the investment. This will transform the way that you sell. And if you see that there is no business case, you can just say to the client, "I've done my research. It doesn't look like there's a good business case. The returns just doesn't make sense. I'm really sorry about that," and then just wrap it up from there. You'll be earning lots of trust from this person. They're probably going to recommend you to other people. Even though you don't get the sale with them, you may get the sale from someone else that they know where there is a good business case. So the way that you present the value is absolutely critical. Most sales trainers will teach you not to sell features, but benefits, right? So what are the features of a product? So for your advertising services, what are the features?
The readership.
Readership?
Specifically,
Yep.
people or
Our audience.
content.
Yes, the
Who
audience.
is.
Yep. Yep. What are the features of the product are there?
Whether it's magazine format or newsprint format.
Yep.
It's a feature.
Good.
Quality audience,
Quality.
our brand that they
Yeah.
might associate with,
Yep.
the breadth of our brands and
Yep.
the variety of different avenues that you can take.
Yep.
Different platforms, we can reach people at any time of the day, anywhere they are.
Absolutely.
on any platform.
So we're venturing now into benefits territory. So what are some of the benefits? So wide reach, brand recognition, those are the benefits, right? But what is the value for your client? So let's just say it's a milk bar. Is a milk bar going to have value from all of these benefits? Probably not. If it's a high-end consulting service, where each client represents a $50,000 contract, what's the business case and the value going to look like to them? Right? So its value is dependent on the person that you're speaking to and their situation. The value is going to depend on the person and their situation, what they value. Yeah, sure, BMW is valuable, but to who? To people that can afford it and people that want that prestige of driving a luxury car. But to regular people who are just happy with a Toyota Camry, not so valuable. It just won't justify, they won't be able to justify the cost. So we have to always think about this in terms of value versus the price that we're asking for. I generally like to work with the 10x rule, which is you have to deliver at least 10 times the value of what you're proposing. Otherwise, it's not worth the effort and not worth the discussions. So what were targeted campaigns, and what would the targeted campaigns mean for the client?
Less wastage.
Less wastage,
Reach to the correct
Stronger.
audience.
reach to the right audience. What would the right reach to the right audience mean for the client?
Potentially a lifetime customer.
A lifetime customer. We're getting closer, we're getting closer.
Sales
Engaging,
for the client.
like engaging
Yes.
the right customer in order to add value to
Yes.
not only the business as an advertiser, but the client
Yes.
that they're influencing, and ultimately
Yes.
that will increase the purchase to intent.
Yes.
Intent to purchase.
Yes,
and
increasing the intent to purchase, and so they essentially become clients. What you're essentially promising is more clients. But let's not stop there. What is the consequence of having more clients?
increase in return to investment.
Yes, increase in return on investment. So that's money, right? So what's the increase in money going to mean for the person that you're selling to?
More money.
More money for them, yes. Greater income. Money is not always a great motivator, by the way. I once spoke to one person considering my training services, and he turned down other training organizations that were offering to pay them to have their training. He chose to do business with me instead. And when I tried to look at, I was kind of in my own box of thinking that he was mostly interested in return on investment. Turns out I was wrong. He wasn't interested in return on investment. He was more interested in the value that he was giving his employees, making them happy and making them feel developed. That was his true value. He wanted happy employees. He didn't want, although I might be able to bring a return on investment, that was what he was most interested in. So it's a good question to ask. So, and this is called the 5 whys technique. Invented first by engineers to figure out what went wrong with machines. So whatever answer they give you in terms of the value that they're going to get for the advertising, more customers means more revenue. More revenue means that the business can expand. And if the business expands, that means they can feel good about themselves. They can feel like they're enlarging their territory. And what would that mean for them? That means that they can buy a new house, or they can buy that car that they've always wanted. See, the things that people value go much deeper than what we are traditionally trained to sell to our clients. So the deeper you can get onto the payoffs and the value that people will get, the more likely it is they're going to buy. As Fleur was saying, you've got to sell the dream, not the product. Don't sell the product, sell the dream. So let's summarize. We've run out of time. Sales is now about relationships, it's about consulting, and it's about maintaining our integrity. Integrity is consistency, what we believe, what we say, and what we do. And so we've done a lot of work today in changing the way that we think about selling to feel better about it. I mean, who wouldn't feel good about giving a person 10 times value on the investment that they put into Fairfax? Sales is universal. It's about leadership, it's about giving value, and we've got to think of ourselves like being a doctor of selling. So thank you for being a great audience, and thank you for having me. I look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you.